Hello, I'm Dan Olette, one of Millcreek's supervisors. With me today is Gary Snyder, our Public Works Director. Today, Gary and I will be talking about our streets department. We'll take a look at where we are coming off of winter operations and where we're heading moving forward into the spring and summer months. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Dan.
Thanks for joining me today.
Pleasure to be here.
Great. We're just coming off of our winter season. How do you think things went this year?
I think things went real well. I'm very proud of our guys. We did a super job as far as our snow plowing and our salting. Not as much snow as in past years, but enough to keep us busy.
Right. We did have a couple of events that put the crews to work for sure. Once around Christmas time and one event since then, but I think the crews did a great job. Gary, I'm not sure if the community really knows, but we do run a couple of different shifts during the winter months. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Starting in late November, we put what we call a third shift on. It's kind of a skeleton crew. We have 5 people on the west side of town and 2 on the east side. The east side being our salt and barn at the Old French Road location. During that time, if during the night we start to get ice or snow buildup, those 5 guys are the first ones to go out and we start hitting our main runs, keeping those roads open. If it gets to be too bad, then we start calling people in off of first shift and bring them in earlier to get started.
Okay, so that certainly helps the the residents of the township heading to work in the morning. Our crews have already been out getting the the main traffic ways opened up and salted and safe for that morning rush hour traffic.
Yes, and to be very honest with you, it's a lot easier to salt and plow at night than it is during the day when there's less traffic. So
for sure,
it makes it a lot easier on the fellas also.
Right. So we have 2 facilities within the township where our crews do stage. I don't think many people actually know where our east side substation is for our streets crew. Can you talk about that a little bit, Gary?
Sure. Our location is just south of Gore Road on Old French Road, about a block and a half on the east side. It's a fairly substantial building. We do keep 5 plow trucks there. And our trucks are dual purpose trucks. They not only have plows in the front, but they also have salt spreaders on the back. So it has cut down our fleet and our repair bills by running dual purpose trucks.
Great. And then plus having this substation over on Old French Road saves our trucks from having to come all the way back to the main yard on Cawhee Road to replenish their salt supplies and then head back out to the east side. True.
We also have fueling capabilities over there, so that they're pretty self-contained on that side of town.
Right, right. They are self-sufficient, and we also have salt storage facilities over at the east side garage also.
Right.
Right. Okay. So, so with the 7 people that are on at night, there's also a foreman assigned to that team also.
Yes, we have. Our bureau chief and 4 foremen for the streets department. The foremen each take a week of on-call on third shift. Okay. So no one person gets stuck on that as far as the foreman.
Right.
So they do have supervision during those hours.
Great. And then that crew comes off at 7 a.m. and then our normal crew works from 7 to 3:30. And then how many workers are in that contingent, Gary?
When we're in full-fledged plow mode, we have 17 plow routes.
Okay.
So we keep a capability of about, with the foreman, 20 people on the west side of town, and the other 8 and foremen are on the east side.
Right. Okay. So that gives us real good coverage township-wide.
Right. And the way the shifts are designated, if it's a protracted storm, we will keep the first crew guys on until 7 at night, and then bring the third shift on early and work them till 7 in the morning. Due to CDL constraints, the most we can have our drivers on the road is 12 hours.
Right. Okay. Well, I know it has been working well, and I'm sure the community has noticed that also, that, the roads are well maintained and, kept free of the salt and, or, snow and ice. So it's certainly working very well for us.
And just a note, in Millcreek, we use straight salt. We do not mix grit in with or any other materials in with our salt. In past years, we found out that it was causing problems with just cleanup in the springtime, plugging up storm sewers, and that it all has to run off someplace.
Right.
So that's why several years ago we decided to go with a straight salt base.
Right. Okay. Now, how did we do with our salt replenishment this year? We in good shape?
Yes, our barns are both full right now. We piggyback onto a state contract. Just about all the counties in the state piggyback on this contract. Because of the amount of salt we use up here, and we get our salt from Morton Salt out of Ohio. Millcreek was the lowest price per ton salt in the whole state. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but no. We do get a good deal.
It worked out well for us, sure.
Yes.
Right. Well, good. Weather's starting to break now, and the crews that are assigned to the night shift, they have about 2 more weeks before they come back to the first shift, and we go back into normal operations. So what are the crews doing right now? What can we expect to see?
Well, the third shift crews, we have, years ago, we built our own catch basins and grates. So the third shift crew don't just sit around at night. They'll make grates, and that we have the capability and welders that are certified to do that, to replenish the grates that get broke or just rust out over a period of years. So now switching into what we're doing right now is mostly pothole patching. We are doing some spills that were broke down during the winter months. We're repairing those and bringing them back up to grade. And everything actually leads into our construction season then.
Right. Well, speaking of rebuilding spills and such, storm water and water runoff and, getting the water off the roads, that's one of the big things, that our storm system takes care of. Traditionally storm spills were built from block and mortar, but we've changed things up since then. So can you talk about what a new spill is, how that's made, and how we go about replacing an old spill and bring it up to date?
Sure. You're right that the old spills were built with cinder blocks, and they're being a porous material. We don't get very much life out of them with the conditions we have around here. So nowadays we're replacing them with precast storm sewers, or storm sewer boxes. These are formed and are solid concrete with reinforcement bar in them. We get those from various vendors that produce them for us. If we're replacing an old one, they have to punch the holes in for us where just the pipes come in. So it's not an easy process, but the outcome is far better than replacing them with cinder block.
Right. We're seeing a lot more life out of the precast boxes now that we've switched to those, and they the install time and replacement time is certainly a lot quicker, a lot more efficient.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we don't. There's still some that where we can't put a new box in, that we're tearing the block out and actually forming them like they would a basement footer.
Right.
And pouring solid concrete in those forms. But yes, it's much more efficient, and the lifetime is just so much greater with the precast.
Right. So there are a couple different ways that repairing these catch basins, and whether we're using precast or we're just pouring in place new concrete. That's certainly saving us a lot of time. And I know we have a very aggressive program. In years past, you'd see a lot of barrels sitting along the sides of roads, but that has since become a rarity now. And I give a lot of credit to the crews that are out there working. They're working hard to change that and to make the improvements. And there's a few reasons why we're seeing that happening, and we're going to get into that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So when they're in there and they're replacing the catch basins, updating those, what else are they looking at while they're doing that process?
Generally, while we have the hole open, the township does have a camera capability, and while the hole's open, we'll take and have our camera run the lines, see what kind of condition they're in. It gives us a good baseline of being able to plan where we have to go as far as putting new storm sewers in or repairing them. There are several ways of making them last a little bit longer. Most of the township is in metal pipe. Not a very good situation to be in, but we're like every other city or township nationwide. I mean, that was state of the art at the time it was installed.
Right.
So we do TV them. If they're in really bad shape, sometimes we are able to have a company come in and reline them, which gives us a really nice job. It's like lining it with a piece of plastic pipe when they're done. Sometimes the pipes are too big and it's not cost effective to do that. And then we have a list of replacement stuff that we have to do, and those would have to be, unfortunately, dug open in order to replace.
So we're replacing corrugated metal pipe, that some of which has been in the ground 40 plus years, and we're replacing it with plastic pipe, essentially.
Yes.
Right. And that's an indefinite lifespan.
Yeah, so far we haven't had to replace any of that.
Right. So that also is being very proactive. We're keeping an eye on not only the catch basins but the pipe, and just making sure that the water can get off the roads and out to the lake where it belongs.
Correct.
And that's our goal. So
Yes.
very good. So because we're being aggressive and working on these water issues, stormwater issues, the capability of being able to do that is because we've kind of changed the direction of how we're paving our roads now. Traditionally, I'm sure most of the community knows that we had our own asphalt plant, and our people did the bulk of the paving in the township. But talk about what we're doing now, Gary.
Okay. 3-4 years ago, in my opinion, the supervisors had the foresight to shut our asphalt plant down. Things were becoming so cost prohibitive to run that plant, and it also tied up at least 20 to 22 people to put a paving crew together, and it doesn't leave a lot of room out of a 28-man crew. So our infrastructure was suffering. So now that we're using a third party to do our paving, I'm not going to say it's any better job, but it's a more even job. We're not stopping and starting so much. These crews work from actually dusk to dawn, so they're getting more done in a shorter period of time, and it leaves our people free to be aggressive to get these barrels off the roads, out of the storm sewers, and it has been a real, I think, improvement in our system of doing things by doing that.
Right. I know that throughout the township we're maintaining about 210 miles of roadway.
Yes.
And I don't think it's a secret to anybody that a lot of that roadway is not in a good state of repair. It's actually in disrepair. Some estimates have it around 140 miles are in distress. So, every year when we're coming up with our list of roads to be paved, there's some tough decisions that need to be made. And talk about some of the factors of, how decisions are made as to what roads are picked and what areas have to maybe be on standby for the next year or the next 2 years? Go into that process, Gary.
The roads are scored every spring. It would be nice to be able to do that in the fall, but unfortunately with our winters around here, it just isn't practical to do that because they'll blow up over the winter. You're correct in probably the 140 miles of being distressed. Those go around, not only the foreman take a quadrant in the township, but the supervisors have taken a very active role in going out and looking at these roads. They look at the number of potholes. Potholes don't necessarily make a road bad if they're not continuous. You'll see what we call alligating. You'll see cracks that look kind of like an alligator's back. That's kind of a sign that the road is starting to lose its life. There's no real good way of repairing that once it starts. We have started in the last few years doing what we call crack sealing, where if the roads aren't in real bad shape as far as cracks, a crew will go out with a tar material and cover those cracks and keeps the water out. Water is the biggest issue with all our streets. So those are graded each year. Sometimes it's just the sides of the roads that are bad, and the cartway, what we call the cartway where the roads travel, is not in too bad a shape. It's really, it's just a tough decision every year that you have to make to figure out what roads are too bad to continue on the way they are.
Right.
And it's tough for the taxpayers to understand that, but there is just a finite amount of money to go around to put into the paving program.
True. Right. So, we're looking at roads, and, some of the decisions aren't sometimes popular with folks, and, and then there's, the neighborhoods that are having their roads redone that are thrilled, that it's happening, and some neighborhoods have waited quite a while for their roads to be paved. Talking about that a little bit, and I heard you talk about the cracks in the roads, and doing the maintenance of the roadways is a big part of what the streets department does. It's not just about paving, but it's maintaining the roads. And, talk a little bit about the crack sealing a little bit more, and talk about why we worry about the cracks in the roads, and what's really happening.
Okay. Wherever you see a crack, it's letting water and salt in the wintertime migrate down through the surface and underneath. The water freezing and thawing is the biggest part of the roads decaying. Sometimes the roads weren't built on the best soils. Since the township has brought their standards up and developers have to adhere to those, we're not seeing as many road failures in that way as we used to. It's not just about going over and relaying asphalt on top of the road. You have to have a good base to start with. And the crack sealing program has helped us keep roads together for maybe a couple, 3 years longer, so that we have a chance to plan out what we want to do. Many years ago, it was kind of a hit and miss way of paving. That has kind of gone by the wayside, and there's more of a plan in place with the paving. So the crack sealing is a big part of that, as far as keeping the roads together a little bit longer, so that the supervisors are able to put together a plan as far as what is really bad and what's going to be bad in the future that they can plan out.
Right. So what basically what we're doing is extending the life of the roadway, and depending on where the roads are, in some residential neighborhoods, it wouldn't be uncommon for a road to last 30 to 40 years, with normal residential use. Now, some of our more frequently traveled roads, there's a lot more traffic each day that come across those roads, and they're going to require more maintenance and probably a little more regular resurfacing than a traditional residential road. Now, I know we're getting away from the practice of putting a Band-Aid on a a bad wound.
Right.
It's we're not doing that anymore. That used to be the quick fix and would keep some of the residents at bay for a while, but it's not fixing the problem. The problem, underlying that fresh layer of asphalt is still a bad road underneath, and when that it won't be long before that fresh asphalt is flaking away, and
Right.
we're seeing a lot of that today, and that's part of the problem that we're having is catching up and doing doing the process right the way it needs to be done, and that's a full mill and repave.
Yes.
And that's the direction we're going in now.
Well, and I have to say, from my point of view, and I have to thank the supervisors, especially last year and this year. Generally, we only use liquid fuels money to pay for our paving projects. The last 2 years, the supervisors have saw fit to give us some of the money out of the general fund, which has allowed us to extend the amount of roads that we're paving. So that has also helped, but it's still money. I mean, that's what it boils down to, and it's a lot of difficult decisions. I mean, not pleasant ones all the time.
No, you're right, they are, and but it's what people see every day. They're going to work, going to school, wherever they're going, they're traveling on a road, and and they're noticing this. So you can't help but notice the bad roads, and
Right.
but that's what we're working on, real hard to get corrected and to make right, so that we can get the life, that we expect out of that roadway.
Yes, we talked to a state representative from PennDOT several years ago, and his comment was that anything south or north of I-80, if you can get 10 to 15 years out of a road, you're doing real good. We're very fortunate. A lot of our roads have lasted longer than that. Folks have to remember that they are 25-mile-an-hour roads. That's a big thing. When you're not getting that kind of traffic, like you mentioned earlier, is a big help in keeping these roads up.
Right.
But the more heavily traveled roads, they do have to be resurfaced sooner than some of the other roads.
That they do, right. Now, you talked about liquid fuels money, and just in case people don't realize, what that is. That's money from gasoline taxes and money that the township receives to help us fund paving projects, equipment used for paving, stormwater. Liquid fuels money can be used for all of those things, but the township supervisors realize that sometimes that's not enough money, and money is pulled in from the general fund to increase the amount of paving that's done, so that we can accomplish some things and increase the amount of square yardage that we're actually paving. And we'd like to get up to 12 to 15 miles a year. I mean, that's ultimately what I'd like to see, and in order for us to catch up to where we need to be to get our roads on a plan where we can pretty much figure out what the schedule is going to be moving forward for life expectancy of roads, and when we can plan on repaving them, and it's just trying to get that under control, and as much as we can, with our weather and everything else that goes into roads and their conditions and deteriorating. So
Yes.
yeah, that's what we're working on.
Yeah, it's the weather is just our biggest factor here. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it, and it is difficult for people to understand why sometimes their roads are not getting the attention they think they should be getting.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most frequent type of phone call that the township receives, whether it's within the streets department or a phone call to the supervisors, and I don't blame people. I fully understand that why they're upset and impatient. It's some people have been waiting for a while,
Yes.
but we just want to let the folks know that we are coming. Help is on the way. It might take a couple years, but we're going to get there. I just think that, the direction we've gone in here with, moving our crews to more maintenance and, having our paving outsourced, and, we're going to get there. I have all the confidence in the world, and we're addressing the stormwater issues. So there's a lot going on, that a lot more than people realize, with how we're doing things. And
Well, and that's just it. It's not just the black stuff on the road that makes it a nice road.
Right.
That the storm sewer and water retention and everything else is a big part of that nowadays. And it takes time to educate people
right.
on that.
Okay. Well, Gary, I certainly appreciate you joining me here today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that the viewers have learned a little bit, more about, our streets department, our plowing operations, our paving operations, more information about, what we do with stormwater and how we're looking to mitigate that, and all the steps that we're taking to, improve the infrastructure within the township.
It's been a pleasure, Dan.
All right, thanks. I'm Dan Olette, and thank you for tuning in to the Millcreek Government Channel.